You are now tuned in to the number one nursing podcast in the world, the Scrub Me In Podcast by Nurse Junior and Anthony.
You are now tuned in to the number one nursing podcast in the world, the Scrub Me In Podcast by Nurse Junior
and Nurse Anthony.
Yeah, another episode in the books right now. We're about to get into.
Yes, sir.
Make sure y'all like, subscribe, comment. We're on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You know, we're over 100 subscribers right now, which is amazing. So let's get that number up.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you for listening, subscribing.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we just do this for fun, really. So
yeah.
Don't care about the money yet.
Yes.
But on this episode, we got a special guest.
Yes, man. Yes, sir.
I met her down in, I want to say Louisiana. It was Louisiana during a travel assignment. And then, we just kept in touch. Always kept in touch with her. But I'll let her introduce herself. You don't got to give your last name, just give your first name and then let us know why you became a nurse.
All right. My name is Jezarae. Thanks again for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
So funny question of why I became a nurse. I had no intentions on becoming a nurse when I went to college. I went to college to go to college and live the college life.
Of course.
After about a year of kind of bebopping around and having no real direction, I ended up in the nursing building. They had a pizza party. Funny.
We know all about the pizza parties.
We know. What company was it? What brand? Domino's? Pizza Hut?
I could not even tell you. All I know is there was free pizza. I was hungover. I was there.
Hey, you were in the right place though,
And then, so they're having pizza, meeting people. I realized that one of the advisors for the pre-nursing, whatever you want to call it, pre-nursing people, she was actually a relative of mine on my dad's side. So met her, and she was just kind of like, hey, take these classes, took the classes, didn't really know that I took them more for some direction, didn't really know it was because I was going to be applying to the nursing program. Yeah. And once I finished all those classes, she said, all right, you can apply for the nursing program. Did that, got in, and got really lucky that I liked it because I know a lot of people that kind of get into nursing and think that it's something that it's not, or vice versa. I got into the nursing program, had no idea what the heck I was doing because I grew up in a super small town. I actually grew up on the reservation in North Dakota, so all I really knew of hospitals and stuff was just kind of like going in, the nurse takes your blood pressure, you sit and wait for the doctor. And so I was kind of a little bit lost. I had direction, a little bit lost, started clinicals, things started making more sense. I got an internship at my local hospital. I was actually in the rehab for my first internship, and then ended up landing a summer internship right before my last semester at Mayo Clinic up in Rochester, Minnesota. I got placed in the ICU there. I got
Mayo Clinic. Yeah. I use Mayo Clinic on Google, whatever. I don't know what
that's as close as I get to
Very good resource on Google.
I think a lot of things just kind of fell into place since then. Like I said, got placed in the ICU, which is really what I was shooting for because I was in the ICU clinical kind of time in nursing school. And so whenever I got out there and a bunch of people, of course, picked ICU. You got what you got when you got there, and you're just happy to be there. Ended up in an ICU there. So I spent the whole summer working on that floor as a summer 3 intern is what they're called. Actually, extern. Couldn't tell you what the difference is. And then once I graduated, I went back to that floor, and that's where I was raised. So I started off in the ICU and kind of took that. That's all I really worked besides float pool. So, and then traveling, just kind of bouncing around from different ICUs, a little bit of ED, and then now I am in flight nursing.
Lovely,
Yes,
lovely.
that is
But
awesome.
before we get into the flight nursing, so you mentioned that you had to take certain electives. What were those electives for the listeners that are potentially thinking of going into nursing but may not have those electives or prerequisites?
So your prereqs, your chemistries, your psychologies, your all of those sort of things. So whenever I went to school, I signed up, and me and my mom were just kind of like picking classes out of the sky. And, it was kind of stuff that I was used to. Like, I was kind of thinking about going more of a STEM route. I was more into like engineering, all that sort of stuff. So whenever I started off, I picked chemistries and that. And so I was kind of on that path already, because those are a couple of things that you need already. But whenever I sat down with Deb, she was my pre-nursing advisor. She was like, oh, you just need to add these psychologies, this. And you take so many psychologies that I feel like by the time you're ready to graduate the nursing program, most of us end up with like a minor in psychology anyway. But yeah.
So I have a younger, my cousin, he wants to get into nursing. So I told him, make sure you get all your mathematics, your sciences, whether that be chemistry, biology for sure, calculus, whatever mathematics really, and you should have a good chance of, potentially getting into the nursing program.
Yeah, right.
So that's one of the reasons why I asked you that. But how long have you been a nurse for, actually?
Oh my gosh, it is so wild. I graduated in December of 2015. So I am in the 10th year here, I believe.
Okay. So we're the same. I think we're the same age. You're 93?
92.
Oh, 92. Okay.
Yeah.
You an old head.
we both old heads. We both old heads. We're all old heads, actually.
Hey, not me. I'm young. Till the day I die.
Oh my goodness. So flight nursing. Talk to us about that, because I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that have never heard what a flight nurse is, or some that want more information on that.
It is, man, I love my job so much. I have always thought by even half this time, right? So 5 years into nursing, I thought I would have been, back to school, doing that whole thing. And, whenever I started, I always knew what a flight nurse was. Like, it was in the back of my mind. But whenever I started off in the ICU, I kind of had the same mind trajectory that I was like, I'm going to get my couple years in, I'm going to go back for anesthesia, and then, have my life together by the time I'm 30 and be done with all of it.
Yeah.
And then like I said, I started off, did my 2 years at Mayo before I started traveling. And then, life just kind of catches up, and then we got that pandemic handed to us, and life, like I said, life just happens, and all these different opportunities kind of came knocking along the way, meeting new people, going all over the place, and just kind of enjoying learning the job and meeting new people and taking you all over the place. And so there's a point where I think it was not after, I hate to say after, because what is after the pandemic? But I remember I was on an assignment up in San Francisco area, and this is kind of when all the Rhonda Vaught stuff was out. Her court case was going on. And I was just so burnt out, because I think a lot of us, once, the COVID money, the assignments, everything was just popping off, and you're just like, work, make the money, work. And I was so burnt out and then stressed out with just kind of all the extra things that were going on in the world, that I ended up taking a month off. And I was like, I do not know what I want to do. I'm not ready to go back to school. And then I always thought too, if I did end up, shooting my shot at school and getting in, that I'd regret not giving flight nursing a shot too. And it's not one of those things that you'd be like, oh, I just like want to do flight nursing and see if I like it. It's kind of a tough door to get into. another one of those things that I really feel like I'm ended up where I'm supposed to be. I put in an application, and it's kind of the same thing with nursing school. I had no idea what I was doing. Put in an application. I ended up I did a little bit of research online about like what the interview process is like and this, that, and there's a whole list of things that they want you to have before even applying. Like you have to have 3 to 5 years of critical care experience, whether that be ICU or ED. They want you to have, all your AHAs. So, BLS, ACLS, PALS, NRP. I did too. In the meantime of all the traveling and this and that, I went out and I got my basic EMT as well, because I thought I wanted to do the whole medic thing on the side too, because there's a lot of flight programs out there that want you to have both, or will hire a medic over, it's just, there's a lot of different things that go into it. And then having your critical care certification. So had my CCRN, and then put in an application. I got a call. I sat through, it was probably like a 2.5 hour interview, and it was probably about a week and a half went by and nobody called me back. I was like, well, it was a good try. Because I remember coming out of that interview, I never felt like such a bonehead. Cause so many questions, I was just like, I have no idea. And they called me back and offered me the job, and here I am.
So that 2.5 hour interview, what was that like? I mean, you said you feel like a donut. So is it more like scenario-based interview?
Yeah. So, well, it's half and half, and I know things are done a little bit differently now. But so whenever you go into the flight world, they not only need to know that you have experience, you know what you're talking about, you're able to gather information and apply that clinically, but you also have to have a personality that's going to fit in where you're being hired. So where I work, there's hospital-based systems, there's 12-hour shifts, but where I work, we work 24-hour shifts. And actually the full-time people there, they work 72 hours. So they work 3 24-hour shifts, and then they're off for 6 days.
Wait,
where I'm a little bit differently. Yeah.
Wow.
So whenever they're hiring people, they need to know that you're going to, fit in, because you live with these people.
Right.
You're all in the same quarters. They, make sure. So there's personality, and then there's also experience and knowledge base too. So a lot of the questions will range literally from what do you do to relieve your stress, to what size ET tube are you going to use on a 4-year-old? And like I said, things like that were things I had no idea. I'm like, I've never even been in a room when anybody was intubating a child. I would have no idea what size tube I would use. And then questions, based off just medications, a lot of critical medications, so pressors or paralytics, whatever it may be. And then so they'd run you through scenarios too. So it's quite the long process, but and like I said, I felt like I was blacked out for half six. I was so nervous.
So in a situation
but I made it.
Yeah. So in a situation like yours, where prior to flight school, it seems like you primarily dealt with adults, and then now you're being thrown into this job where you may have to airlift a child. Do they put you through a pretty rigorous training so that you're ready for any type of situation?
So training for the job is, I would say, pretty rigorous as far as information.
Okay.
However, just kind of like the job, so they will do, we got to go in and do intubations at the hospital, that sort of thing, but I didn't get a whole lot of hands-on with peds. So a lot of that experience comes on the job, just like a lot of our experience that we get with nursing.
Absolutely.
You can prepare for a code all day long, but it's not until you're running one with a bunch of people that you don't know, that you kind of put that knowledge to the test. But there's a lot of training. So even on the job, whenever we're not flying, normally we're either training or sleeping. So it's train for the unknown, train for what you have been through, train for what you do know. It's constant learning on the job. That's another thing too that they're looking for whenever people are hiring people for flight, is that you have to be very self-motivated to stay on top of your skills, stay on top of, the latest evidence-based practice, all that sort of stuff.
Right. That's very interesting. So in terms of, are you guys mainly based in certain states or regions? How does that work?
So my company that I work for, we are all over the United States. So we have bases all over the place. However, where I work, I was hired for the Southwest region, and that's another thing too. Is I'm afloat, so I'm not dedicated to one certain base. Whenever I applied for this job, I don't know who I thought I was, but like I said, they took me, and I went with it. Like I said, it was a tough transition, but I was very lucky with people that I got hired in with, because I mainly work around Arizona, and then I float up to Vegas too every once in a while. So I mainly float between 3 bases, and we are rotor and fixed wing. And this is a little bit different. So you have your hospital-based flight systems, right, where they have their own helicopter for that hospital. They stay in the hospital. Other flight companies, our flight company too, I'm sure, in just different locations, they stay right in the hangar with their crew. The way we operate, because we work very rural too, which is another thing that I actually really like about the job. Our rotor base is kind of out in the middle of nowhere, next to a hospital, but we have an apartment, so it's right across the street. So whenever we get paged out for a flight, it literally takes 2 minutes to get to our aircraft.
Oh, that's cool.
And so we will be responding to either that hospital. So if that hospital has something that they need that's critical that needs to get sent out to a bigger hospital, a lot of times we fly into like Phoenix or Vegas or something like that. Or we do scene calls too. So let's say there was, a farmer accident or a car accident out, within the area. We fly out and respond to those two, and then take those to the closest appropriate facility.
Right. So you said your base is mainly in Arizona. You guys are in an apartment. What resources do you guys have within your reach? Do you guys have like a fitness center? And I know. And then also,
why'd y'all laugh?
I don't know. I just laughed because she laughed. I feel like
What's wrong with staying fit?
No. I feel like she laughed because she does have a fitness center, but she doesn't use it. That's kind of why. I think that's why maybe she chuckled. Am I right? Or?
No, you are. So I laugh because whenever I say I'm out in the middle of nowhere, we are out in the middle of nowhere. And so let's say my base in Vegas, their apartment is also right across from right across from the hangar. However, they're like right on the strip. This is like a normal apartment building that has a gym, that has all the things. But down at the other bases, one of the other bases that I'm mostly at, I would say there is no gym. You utilize the desert. Actually, we've just made friends with one of the fire departments. So depending on time, we can utilize theirs. But we have been slowly building our own little gym with weights that we pick up here, there, and the other. So this is all stuff that we've kind of had to make our own since we were out there. And a really cool thing about this base too is it was a year after I started this job that we just opened that base. So that's a brand new base, and like the whole town, everything brand new to us. So that was like a ground up building experience.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So the reason why
I giggled because we didn't have we don't have any of that. It's a lot of we call hot girl walks, where we just kind of like walk around the block and hope we don't get chased by dogs and that sort of thing. But,
Makes sense. Because this is a high stress job
Absolutely.
for sure. So what are certain things that you guys do to relieve that stress? And I guess you kind of answered that a little bit, but other resources I wanted to mention besides the gym was also like, well, clearly there's no malls there. Groceries, like how does the grocery situation work out there if you guys are kind of in the middle of nowhere? And
yeah, so there's a grocery store out there. And I mean, the grocery store and stuff is so close that even if we did get a call, if you just like drop what you're doing, you're going to make it to where you need to be.
okay.
However, we try to stay within, like, we don't go too far. And I mean, there's nothing to do where we're at anyway. So nice thing about where we're at, our company is really good to us. Like, they get us a grill, like stuff that we request, like they'll get for us. But it's a lot of like hanging out at the crew house. We have barbecues. We have, you know, that sort of stuff. Like, just be like what you say on the unit for like Super Bowl or Christmas or whatever. But a lot of just kind of hanging out. You get to know your partners really, really well. Everybody becomes just kind of like family. If there's like community events, just because where we are is so small, we try to, you know, make an appearance just because we do a lot of PR. There's a lot of other things that go into this job besides just the job, besides like training and whatnot. So we try to get out into the community and kind of make ourselves known, let them know that we're there. But yeah, so we do. I mean, we have time whenever, like, if we're not flying, like I said, we're training or we're hanging out or cooking or, you know, that sort of stuff. It is high stress, but I feel like too that's a reason why whenever they're interviewing, is personality is such a big thing, because you have to be able to not only be able to handle difficult situations, but also like be present for those around you whenever. And everybody copes differently, and we have good debriefs, and we have like our, I will say my management is the most amazing management I've ever had in any job that I've ever had.
That's good.
And then we have a lot of like employee assistance programs and stuff like that. So
awesome.
There's a lot of things out there for us. And then you just kind of make it what you can at the base, because like I said, it's small town deserts, and just a lot of frisbee.
So for you, when you're working, what do your, like, give us a rundown about, like, on how your shifts work, like how long you're on shift and what that looks like.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit different because I am a float.
Okay.
So you guys are going to think this is crazy, but I work 10 days in a row.
God damn.
So I work 10 24-hour shifts in a row, but then I'm off for 20 days after that.
You work for 240 hours straight. Like, think about that for a second.
What I clock in. Yes, sir.
But then you also got to take in that sometimes within those hours, she may not get a call.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that. But for 240 hours straight, you have responsibilities.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a father, and I don't want to even be responsible for my kids for 240 hours straight. You know what I'm saying?
Call me crazy, but I don't think that's bad.
No, it's great because, yeah, you do get the 20 days off straight, you said, and that's awesome.
Yes.
I'm just saying, that's a lot of responsibility.
It is. Yeah.
And then, so let me ask you a follow-up question. Let's say if, like, have you ever been in situations where you have like back-to-back calls?
Yes. So I will kind of touch on that, and that's why my 10 days is very manageable. So the company, like where I work, we're very like safety first, and I mean that is most, like, no flight company is ever going to say that's not how we operate, but safety first. So whether that be, and like our pilots are awesome too. Whenever they come in, they'll be like, "How are you feeling?" Like, we have a whole thing that we go. So there's like a lot of logistics to it, but everybody's checking on each other. So, how long have you been awake? Have you eaten? Have you drank water today? Like, it's constant checking. But so where I'm at right now, one flight. So this isn't like in the city flying from one hospital to another, which these calls sometimes take like 40 minutes. Where I'm at, because we are so rural, one call could take 5 hours. So
Damn.
let's say I'm getting paged to the hospital or to a scene call. We have to, and as soon as like we get a call, like that's called active duty time.
Yeah.
So, you know, you grab your, you know, iPad, your narcs, all your things, you get to the aircraft, you either package your patient from the hospital, load them up, or you're getting sent to a scene call somewhere, load up your patient. And then that flight, normally to wherever we're going, is anywhere between 50 minutes to an hour and 10 minutes. So then flying there, taking care of your patient for that hour, whatever it is, dropping off your patient, and then not only that, then you have to pop over to the airport and get fuel for your aircraft.
Right.
And then you come back to base, which is another hour. And then you have to restock, do all the things, clean your aircraft, depending on, you know, what the call was. And so that can take up to 5 hours. And there are times where, let's say we're on a flight and we're on a flight back and we're already getting notified that, hey, I don't know what your like restock time is, but we already have another patient for you as soon as you get back. And so 2 flights, 10 hours, 3 flights, and that's being very generous. A lot of times if you're doing 2 flights, it's like 11-ish, 12. And then if you're doing 3 flights, you know, 16, 18, whatever it may be. But we have a very good fatigue policy. So if you work 16 hours, and let's say you're in the middle of your flight on your 16th hour, by the time you get back, you have a mandatory downtime of 10 hours.
Oh, 10 hours.
So you have to be down for 10 hours where nobody can call you, nobody can talk to you. You have to, I mean, you can do what you want with that 10 hours, but trust me, if you've been flying, you will be sleeping for your 10 hours.
Sleep, for sure.
Because
that's essentially,
you
just
not
had a 16-hour,
to,
like, nonstop shift at that point. So you're definitely going to want to sleep.
Yep. And then there's just like a lot of other things that like go into it too. So like down in Arizona, if this is in July, you're working your butt off for 16 hours in 120-degree weather.
Right.
It's doing 3 flights is a lot harder in July than it is in, let's say, January.
Oh, for sure.
But the other thing is too is like you don't have to be working that full 16 hours. So let's say me and my partner were out on our second call, and my partner says, "Hey, Jez, I cannot do another call. I'm exhausted. Whatever." So my partner can time out, and then they can time out for 4, 6, 8 hours, whatever they feel the need to. We just have to call and like get that cleared with our PD, our program director. But there's never been a time where like they've said no. Get out there, you go pick up that patient. Like that's never, like I said, safety always comes first.
That's
and
right,
so so I mean, while it does sound bonkers, it's manageable as long as you're managing your time well. Like if people show up to work, and a lot of people drive to the base. So like if you're driving in from, let's say, I don't know, Phoenix, it's like a 3-hour drive to work. So you're having to get there by 8 a.m. Yeah. So you might have been up for a couple hours. And if you choose to stay up all day, and let's say your flights start coming out at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and then you're flying all night, like you really have to manage your time on your own.
Absolutely.
So like, while it's nice to like hang out and catch up, it's like, hey, I'm a little bit tired. I have to go nap. I'll see you guys whenever I wake up. There's a lot of safety naps in this job.
Yeah, which is totally fair.
I feel like we're going to have a lot of questions on this episode.
100%, man. I'm so interested in what she does.
So, okay. First things first. When it comes down to flight nursing, right? When you guys have to restock, when it comes down to the medications, do you guys have it at the base, or do you guys have like a Pyxis within the plane? Or first and foremost, is it a plane or is it a jet? What are you guys dealing with out there?
I feel like we've been all over the place. Like, a little bit. But that's how this works. So depending on the base that I'm at, so like I said, I work primarily at 3 different bases. One base is just fixed wing, so just a plane. The other base that I'm mostly at, we have
like what kind of plane? Like, is it?
So it's kind of like it's a PC-12. is what it's called. And there's another one, it's a C90, but it's like a small jet, I would say.
Okay.
I don't really know how to explain it. There's like a small plane.
So you guys got PJs.
So is it like Rick Ross's jet, or is it like
Drake's?
50 Cent's jet?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've actually seen Drake's plane in Phoenix, and it is not that big.
Oh,
wow.
So y'all got Jeff Bezos' jet.
Is what you're saying.
It's a I don't know how to explain it. One of them is like a single engine aircraft. The other one is dual engine. What do they got? Maybe like 5 windows along the side.
Okay.
They're smaller. They're not as small as like a Cessna or something like that. Of course, I don't know how much you guys know about aviation, but I could send you guys a photo.
Well, so are these planes equipped only for like one patient at a time?
Good question.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I sent you that just now. So that's about the size of the plane.
Right.
And that is actually a PC-12. That is one of the planes that we have. So one of the bases has a plane like that. One of the other bases is we have 2 rotors, so 2 helicopters. They're H-130s. And then another base that I work at has 2 H-130s, so 2 helicopters and 1 plane. Wow. So, and then each aircraft will have a nurse and a medic assigned to each aircraft. So some of our bases has 9 people. Some of our bases has, you know, depending on how many aircraft are up or who shows up to work that day.
Right.
But yeah, so I forgot the question now, but I do, that's lucky. I'm lucky too, because I get to do both. The switch up is nice.
I remember the question, but now I have a different question now. So, so when it comes down to the base, what, like, in terms of the number of members within a team, we got the pilot, or is it 2 pilots, 2 nurses? How does it work?
Yeah, how does it work?
So everything is single pilot. So we always have a pilot, and then we have a nurse, and then we have a medic.
I got you.
However, I will say we can fly nurse. We can fly medic, depending on the situation. There's like literally like 2 meds, and I don't want to say 2, but it's a very small amount of medications that medics can't give.
Administer, right?
Yes. But so the nurse medic thing, I will say, like I said, we fly nurse all the time. We fly medic, we fly nurse medic. We ultimately have to just make sure that the call that we're going on is okay for that.
Makes sense.
Personally, like, how do I say? So if I'm going out on a team call, I love all my nurses to death, but I hope that I have a medic with me. You know, that's a medic's bread and butter. They know how to run those calls.
That's true.
Team calls are completely different. And I guarantee you that if a medic gets a call into an ICU, they're going to hope that they have a nurse with them.
For sure.
And I'm not saying that 2 medics can't handle it. I'm not saying 2 nurses can't handle it. All I'm saying is we have our specialties, and that's why we have the pairs that we have, and they work very well.
Absolutely.
That being said, where I work, I'm not sure how it varies in different companies, but my medic can do basically everything that I can do, and I can do everything that they can do. And so whenever we show up to work, it's not like we don't see each other in that way, if that makes sense. Like, we don't see each other as different. Like, we are all capable of doing the exact same thing. We're all trained on the same skills. We're all more than capable to handle all the same equipment, making the same decisions. I will say the one thing is just like I said, a couple of the meds, and then pay is different. Pay is lower for medics, and I think, and I don't want to I'm not sure how accurate this is, but I think it has to do with the education. So nurses go to school for 4 years. But yeah, we can all do exactly what the person sitting next to us does. Yep.
Right. So, I mean, it seems like you guys have a pretty great staff. And this is just a question kind of piggybacking on what you just said. Do you ever feel like in the work environment, especially since the medics get paid a little bit less but are doing essentially the same job, there's ever like any type of animosity?
I don't think, how can I say this?
And let me be clear, if you don't want to answer any questions, you absolutely don't have to. I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Because this is brought up all the time. Like, it's said out loud. It's, it's very well known. And like, I personally don't think there should be like that. There should be a pay difference because we do everything the same.
Right.
But like I said, justifying pays and this and that and the other. And I think there can be, but I think another thing too, which doesn't make it okay, our medics are paid, from what it sounds like, better than what they do, or better than what they get paid on the ground.
Right.
Which is, I will say, the opposite for nurses. So a lot of nurses, we take a huge pay cut going into flight because,
really?
Yes, because it's, it's a whole different life. Getting out of the hospital was everything that I needed at the time that it happened. And I did take a pay cut for the job, but I would do it over and over again.
Wow, that's awesome to hear.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I'm still paid well, but I could definitely be making, more money elsewhere. But right. I think it's just, that's where it shows, like, if you're happy doing your job, like, you'll stay. If you're happy with your management, you will stay. If you're happy with the people that you're working with, you will stay.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. So your rate stays the same throughout. So let's say you guys get a call to a scene or to the hospital and you guys are in flight. Your rate will stay the same even if you didn't get a page or a call?
Yeah, so I'm paid hourly. As soon as I'm on for the start of my shift, I'm paid, I hate to say the same because my pay, we get overtime. A lot of my pay is overtime because I am there for 10 days, depending on how it lands in the schedule. Because sometimes I'll work all my days in one schedule. Sometimes I'll work like 2 of my days in one schedule and 8 of my days in another schedule.
Right.
So that it all just kind of depends. So yeah, like I said, my schedule's a little weird, but you get paid the same. And then I think that's the same with EMS too. I mean, I've never worked ground or like EMS other than my job right now, but I think a lot of the pay is based, like a lot of the help comes from the overtime that you do.
Well, for sure. Because
we do work those longer shifts.
Wow.
So for you specifically, with working 10 days in a row, let's say all 10 days were spent in one pay cycle, right? So essentially anything over 40 hours or anything over, I guess, 80 hours, would that be considered overtime?
Yes.
Whoa. That's incredible.
Yes. And then you do have to remember too, though, like if I'm only getting that one paycheck for the month, like,
oh, that's true.
Depending on what I take out for taxes or this or that, like that doubles or,
absolutely.
So playing that game can be like, it's not like you're getting your same, paycheck every 2 weeks where you're like, you notice it's not there, but you don't really notice it's not there. So like if I'm just getting my one big check for the month, you notice that, like,
for sure,
quarter year checks going into your retirement or whatever it is, taxes, this, that, and the other. So
even though you have
lots of things to think about.
Absolutely. But even though you have those 20 days, if they were like, yo, we need an extra nurse for like a few days, would you be able to pick up that shift or a few shifts in a row?
So I cannot. So unless I'm already like in town, because I fly out to work.
All right.
So another perk that I know a lot of flight companies do, because a lot of flight companies have rural bases. If you are afloat at these rural bases, they fly you out. So they fly me out to work and then they fly me home.
Right.
So that cost is not on me. And I know there's like other flight companies are like that too. So if I'm in Illinois and they need help for 2 days, they're not going to fly me out to do 2 days. But if I'm already out there, there's been plenty of times where they're like, hey, do you want to stay an extra day? Or, hey, like, do you want to take a day or two off and just hang out and then pick up like these 3 days before you go home? That sort of stuff happens too. So,
I got you.
But if there is like training that's in the middle of my days off, I do have to, like, because we have like skills and stuff like that are all mandatory throughout the year. So if those land on my off time, I do have to fly back to Arizona to go and get those done.
But you get paid for those skills, though, for the listeners that are wondering. Okay.
This is a super random question and kind of has nothing to do with nursing and really only pertains to kind of what you're doing. So when you get flown in and out of work, do you get flown in and out on like passenger planes, or is it the planes that you guys use for patients?
Oh no, I'm flying United. They're not coming to pick me up in any
so this is kind of okay. So that
no Drake's plane coming to get me.
So this is kind of a precursor to my question. So do you have like a shit ton of air miles then?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Another reason why I love my job.
Oh, that is amazing.
Yeah, that was one of my questions that I had stored in my brain.
Damn, let's fly to Dubai for free. Let's go to Dubai. I'm Jez.
I know, right? Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's amazing.
So now to piggyback off of Anthony's question, with everything that's been going on in today's society with these plane crashes and et cetera,
R.I.P. Kobe.
All right, for real. On top of that, you mentioned one pilot within your plane. Do you feel like they should have two instead of one, just in case of an emergency, God forbid, with the pilot?
That would be ideal. I don't know that any flight company well, actually, it could be. There is so many of us that it would cost a lot of money to put two pilots in the plane. Would that be ideal? Absolutely. I'd be more than thrilled to have two pilots on my plane. There are, like I said, we do our best as a team, and it's as far as like there are emergency trainings that we do as a crew. I never want to know how those would ever turn out, but so we do emergency trainings with the pilot.
Okay.
On like our what we call dead legs back. So whenever we're heading back to the base for that long flight without a patient, we'll do trainings with them. And then the other thing too is just like keeping everybody awake. So a lot of conversations on that leg back too, just so like a lot of our flights are at night, making sure everybody's, caffeinated, awake, chatting. It's been a little interesting with everything that's going on, but our pilots go like above and beyond to make sure that, the aircraft is safe, that they are safe, that we are safe. And there's been times where like a single light will come on in the aircraft and they're like, nope, we're not going. So we'll already have like, there's been times where we've had patients in the aircraft and we've had to like switch them to either the rotor or end up back at a hospital just because they were like, no, we're not going to take off with, with this light on until maintenance comes back. So there's a lot of things put in place.
Wow.
And like I said, if I could have two pilots, I would.
Because have you read or heard of any situations where there's been an incident with just having one pilot in the past?
We with a lot of we do a lot of crew resource management trainings and stuff like that where, situations are brought to our, like, making us aware of what's going on, how things happen, why things happen. And while yes, it is scary, I do believe that we do what we can to mitigate these problems.
Right.
And it's one of those things that we truly do learn to trust our pilots, and we do things too. So there's the pilots do so many checks on the aircraft. There's checks that we do too. So it's a lot of triple checking each other.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know that, where is it? Is it Canada or maybe it's Australia? I know that they do a lot more double pilot flying. But yeah, it's not quite here yet.
Yeah, I know there was a company. So when I was in Australia, I worked for the Northern Territory government, and right across from the building that we worked in was actually a flight medic crew. And as far as I know, they always went double piloted. Because when we would see them take off, there was always two in the front, at the front of the plane. It looked like.
Yeah. Yeah. So that must be Australia. Because I know whenever this, I don't know, I hate to say more, but there was a close calls and incidences that have happened all in a short period of time. There's a couple YouTuber aviation people, and I think they did say that it's Australia where they always fly double pilot.
I want to say,
which I think is amazing. Yeah. If you're able to do it,
For sure.
No, I agree. Just curious about that, honestly. Hopefully, it becomes mandatory in the near future to have two, but hopefully we'll see.
Yeah.
But then piggybacking over to my other question now. Independently flying, so when you do get, with everything that's going on, how's your anxiety level with everything that's been going on recently with that? Because I know for me, I'm kind of nervous to hop on a plane myself these days with everything that I've seen, especially with that crash that happened in Toronto.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you weren't worried before, don't let Junior worry you now. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Oh my gosh.
Let me tell you, you're not the first. Even whenever I took this job, my parents were like, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna stress us out for the rest of the time that you're working here." And like I said, our pilots are so good at reassuring us. And I've even seen videos of people even now just getting on planes this week where pilots are coming over the intercom and trying to reassure people, where it's kind of sad that that's where we're at, but
sure.
Also very, it's very much needed. I think transparency, and
For sure.
I honestly can't. I don't even know what's going on right now. There's no reason that we should be waking up and once a week hearing about, aviation issues all over the place.
Right.
And so, yeah, it does make me a little more anxious, I would say. But like I said, our pilots, they're awesome at just keeping us calm. And so another thing I probably should have mentioned with the job is so if we get sent out on a mission, it's 3 to go, 1 to say no. So if the pilot isn't feeling it, if my partner isn't feeling it, if I'm not feeling it, it just takes one of us to say I'm not taking this flight, and that's all it takes.
Wow, that's incredible.
You said 3 no's?
Yeah.
3 to go.
Oh, 3 to go.
3 to go,
1 to
say no.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, we've actually had, me and my partner, we actually did our 3 flights, and there was another flight, and it was actually a shorter flight. And whenever you're working that long, you get your second wind, and we were feeling good. And our pilot was like, "No, you guys have been going too long. I'm not accepting this flight."
Yeah.
Which sometimes that's sometimes, and like I said, in this job, everybody's truly looking out for each other. Because whenever you get up there, it's just you guys.
Yeah.
That's all you got.
I respect that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you a question on kind of what a call looks like. So let's say, I don't know, someone calls 911, blah, blah, blah. Hey, we have a flight crew that's going to come to you. You guys get on the plane, and let's say it's that hour flight time to the emergency. what are you, the medic and the pilot, doing on the plane to prepare yourselves for that call?
All right. So if we're going out for a scene call, a lot of times we'll be in the rotor. And so depending on what the call is, sometimes our dispatch will get all the information. Sometimes they'll get none of the information.
Right.
And so dispatch is the people who, like our cell phones that we have for work, they will get toned out. And so first, before they even give us any patient information, the pilot has to accept the flight. Okay. They don't want the pilot knowing anything about the patient, right? So if there's like funny weather or this, that, and the other, they're like, well, I know that the weather is like not that great, but this is a kid. Like they can't make decisions like that. So they call the pilot first. The pilot will say, yes, we're going to take that flight. And then we get activated. Okay. So they'll call us and they'll say, hey, there's a scene call. It's, I don't know, let's say. And sometimes they won't even have any information. And so sometimes whenever the ambulance gets dispatched, they might get information that they know that they're going to need us. So sometimes they'll automatically dispatch us thinking that we'll already be on the way there by the time they get there.
I see.
So it truly just depends. Sometimes we have information, sometimes we don't. But if let's say it's a car accident and let's say, I don't know, a lot of times it'll be like that'll be the information. It's an MDC, mid-20s male or whatever it is. So if we're going on that flight, like we kind of get all the things prepared. Whenever we're trained in this job, you're kind of prepared for the worst.
Right.
So we'll get like calculations ready. So let's say if we had to intubate the patient, we'd have all of our drug calculations ready. So we know like what dosage of medications we'd have, we have a bag ready with all of that stuff in it, what tube we're going to use. Who's going to be doing it? Because a lot of times you go on a call, who's going to be doing like the patient care? I hate to say patient care versus charting because whenever you're on a call like that, you're both doing patient care, but you're just kind of dictating your roles.
Right.
So between like airway, who's going to be putting the monitor and pads or whatever else on the patient, what other medications you want to get drawn up. So we're kind of in motion with all of that, hopefully by the time we get there.
I got you.
Without kind of breaking into too many meds, you at least know kind of like we talk through the whole entire situation, hoping that we have the whole call kind of figured out by the time we get there.
Right.
If you don't have any information, then it's a lot of times just kind of showing up and winging it. But
yeah, for sure.
We do everything in our power to have everything that we may or may not need ready by the time we get there. And sometimes it's only 5 minutes away, so you won't even have time to really do anything by the time you get there. So it really just depends.
So with those missions that are a little bit further, obviously you guys would be informed on what the case is or the situation, and then from there it would allow you guys to get the medications that you need from the base and then bring it onto the plane, as opposed to having maybe certain medications on the plane already. How does that work?
So we carry everything that we might possibly need on the aircraft.
Okay.
So we have a whole med bag that has like all kinds of like, I hate to say general meds, but meds that aren't like locked away. So like our narcotics, which we keep on our person. Those just don't just hang out in the aircraft. But so like we have a whole med bag with everything that you might need. We have like a peds bag, we have a scene bag, we have a trauma bag, we have all of that stuff, and we leave them all in the aircraft. And so for everything that we might need, we might go to this call and they might need nothing. We might just have to like they might be stable. We might drop them off at the ER because there's a chance whenever we get back into our aircraft, we'll get dispatched for another flight before even leaving that ER. So like we can't really pick and choose certain things to bring on the aircraft because we might get sent out for another call and we have to have everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say if you had like back-to-back trauma calls, right? And you just broke into your trauma bag, you used what you had to use, you get the patient safely to the hospital, and as you're leaving, you're like, oh, we got another call. in a situation like that, and I know it's so vague in general, but do you still have enough supplies in that bag to go to that next call, or do you have to like re-up before you can go to that call?
So a lot of times we will have enough to go on that second call. Like
Okay.
I can't imagine. So it truly depends on the call.
Yeah.
So like let's say 'cause there have been calls where I've went through all of my epi.
Yeah, right.
You know, there have been calls where I've been through like most of my ACLS meds. So those are a little bit different, right? Like if I'm like actively coding a patient on the way to drop them off, I'm probably not going to take a flight right off the get-go. So we try to stay as prepared for, you know, the worst. And like, if we do take a patient and we're like low on this, low on that, we also train for ways to like MacGyver things to make it work. Because there are times where, let's say your coworkers who were on your aircraft just got back from a flight at 8 a.m. You get dispatched for another flight. A couple things were forgotten. You get to where you need to be, and you realize there's no, I don't know, electrodes or something like that. Like there are, you know, we train to know like, oh, well, we'll just use this instead, or oh, we'll just use this.
I got you. That's cool.
Yeah. Like there's times where, and I hate to say this, but like we didn't have electrodes, so we had to use an actual set of pads, which is not very cost efficient, but you do what you do, right?
Of course. Absolutely.
So just little things like that. But we do what we can. We know if we absolutely can't take a call because we don't have what we need, we have to turn down that call. It's not the end of the world. We're not the only flight company out there. And that's like the other thing too, that I feel like as much as we want all these calls, we don't push the limit either. We're not like, there's other hands out there to help.
Right. True.
It kind of just made me think of something you were talking about before when you were saying that like there have been times where you just have to code somebody on the plane and stuff. As staff for a job like this, and I don't want to body shame anybody, do you have to kind of keep your weight down? And this is why I'm asking. So I think of somebody like myself, right? I'm like just a juicy 300 pounds. You know what I'm saying? I'm a big motherfucker, right? So if we're on one of these helicopters and I'm on someone's chest that's also 300 pounds, right? And I'm beating on someone's chest, I might be rocking that helicopter back and forth a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So when you work in a situation like yours, do they talk about potentially having to keep your weight down, especially with all the cargo you guys have to have?
Yes, I kind of wish we would have covered that earlier so besides the experience and educational requirements for the job, there are also physical requirements for the job.
Right.
So with your gear, so your helmet, your boots, your flight suit, and your travel bag that we carry that has like a lot of times we'll put our narcs, the iPad, all that sort of stuff in it. With all of your equipment on, you have to be 225 or less.
Oh, I'm out. I can't work for y'all.
But I can.
I couldn't work for y'all in high school.
But I can.
Dude, that's wild.
Well, and that's one of the things too. Whenever I started this job, I was like, well, whenever I was wanting to do this job, I'm 6 foot. So I was like, am I going to fit in that thing? You know, whatever. But there are people taller than I am in the job too. So like height, as long as you're not worried about, and like our 130s, our rotors, they're pretty spacious. Sometimes we fly in A-stars, which they're a little bit smaller. But it's doable. I think one of my coworkers, he's got to be like 6'4", and he does just fine. But yeah, so you have to be below 225, and
that's with all your
mainly
gear,
because that's with all your gear.
Right.
Yeah. And I think the gear probably adds like, let's say 10 pounds, maybe, depending on what shoes and stuff you wear, which I would think people pick a lighter. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're 90 pounds, you don't care how much a boot weighs.
Of course. But then you got to log a heavy boot at 90 pounds.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because then, I mean, depending on your crew, how heavy your crew is, that also depends on patient weight as well.
Right.
So one of the things, like right away in the morning, we'll get a brief with our pilot. So we learn about weather and we learn about what's going on, if our aircraft has any maintenance due, this, that, and the other. And then they'll also tell us what our max patient weight is for the day. So they take all three of our weights and the weight and balance of the helicopter and then kind of decide what's left that we can carry patients. So a lot of times patient weight can be anywhere between it really depends on who you're flying with and pilot. And there are other things too. I know I've set I'd say probably 260, 70, depending on who you're flying with, all the way to 340. A lot of times is patient, what we can fly in the rotor.
So
and so whenever you have bigger patients, that's whenever we call our friends on the fixed wing.
Right.
Because our fixed wing can take a lot more weight.
I see.
So that's another part of logistics, as I think I was saying earlier. Sometimes the hardest part of this job is the logistics that go into making everything go and go as smooth as it can. Because like I said, sometimes you might get in that plane and there's a light that comes on, then you have to call dispatch and do this, that, and get them into a different aircraft. Or you might show up and they'll say, oh, the patient, and then we'll weigh the patient and the patient's actually 350 and not 280 like they told the nurses they were.
Yeah.
Which I know, big difference. But then that's another logistical thing. We have to call dispatch, we have to find a fixed wing or find somebody else to take them. And then another thing, if we have peds patients, a lot of times we try to take mom or dad or whoever the guardian is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I have flown with riders, as we call them, in the rotor before, whenever we have babies or whatever. But a lot of times those will be for our fixed wing friends as well, because they have, their own seats and there's a lot more space. And if something, should happen in flight, fixed wing is a lot nicer to deal with certain emergencies.
Right.
Especially if you have that extra person, because you can imagine being in the middle of a shit show and you have mom sitting next to you and baby doing things that they're not supposed to be doing and trying to, handle all that. So there's a lot of different things that would make you choose between a fixed wing or a helicopter, because sometimes we'll get called for patients who are, intoxicated. Can't trust them. I'm not taking you in my rotor if you're going to swing at me or my pilot. Absolutely not.
For sure.
You guys have been in the ER. You know what that's like.
Yeah.
It's just, there's a lot of different things that go into, are we putting this patient in the helicopter? Is it safe? There are times where we've intubated people just so we have a safe flight, because they need to get where they need to go. But
that is fair.
They're not safe. Restraints can only do so much sometimes.
It's so true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to what you mentioned about pediatrics, obviously, mom, dad, they'll most likely 100% want to be on the flight. How big is communication with them to let them know, listen, in the air, we need space. We got to handle what we got to handle and do with your child. Can you go into details of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So right off the get-go, we will go in there and assess the situation. How sick is the kiddo? What are the chances that something could go wrong in flight? What does something wrong look like?
Mm-hmm.
What does mom or dad look like? Do they look like they can handle the situation? Do they look like they can stay calm? Are they calm now? All these things we have to take into account. And so we have those conversations hey, if something goes wrong, Can we trust you to stay calm? Can we trust you to, you can't have a meltdown at 5,000 feet in the air.
Right.
So having that conversation, and a lot of times they're easy to read, and sometimes just depending on the kid's presentation, it'll be absolutely not, like, or I'm sorry, you will need to get there on your own. You are not coming in the aircraft with us. And then so pilot will also take a look at the parent or person that's going to be coming along. So again, another set of eyes. If the pilot at that moment says, seem a little off, I don't really want them coming, then we pivot too. Because like I said, safety is our biggest concern. And so we have no problem, and I know it's kind of a crappy situation, but we have no problem with saying, like, I'm sorry, but for the safety of your child and us, we cannot allow you to be on this flight.
Yeah, right.
But again, kids are a lot more calm when they have mom or dad with
Very
them.
true.
So we do everything that we can do to allow them to come, because it helps. I hate to say it, but it helps us because, I don't have kids. I'm not that therapeutic with children. I do my best, but
Yeah.
I'm not. It's just not the same as mom or dad. I'm the scary alien looking thing in the back with this big helmet on. Like, I'm frightening. Yeah. But yeah, so we'll give parents a headset, and we can turn that on and off depending. So we do keep them in the loop. Like, absolutely, if we're doing something, we let them know why, this, that, and the other, but we can also unplug them, because a lot of things too, like, even with our patients, there's so much air traffic that you hear that, like, it can make people anxious. So a lot of times we don't want them hearing that either.
Definitely. It's funny. So, like you mentioned, either the nurses, or the first line is the nurses and the medics will come to an agreement or a decision saying, you know what, we don't feel comfortable having that parent on. Now we're going to go to the pilot. All right. The pilot says, yeah, we don't feel comfortable having that parent on. And then I guess that's really the test right there. Depending on what the nurse, the medic, and the pilot says, if they all say no, I think the true side of that parent will really come out to let you know if they can or cannot, or if they would or wouldn't handle being on that plane, because some of them may just go bonkers and go crazy. Have you ever had a situation like that?
I will say I've not, because a lot of times, like, if you're calling us, like, your kiddo is that sick, and like, whenever, and having that conversation, it's like, hey, we're all just here looking out for your kiddo. And they'll be like, a lot of times be like, yeah, you're probably right. Like, we'll just drive, or we'll just, whatever it is. I've personally never had anybody, I've had, like, a little bit of a sass, like, oh, they said I can't go, but, like, nothing to where it was, out of control. Because I think a lot of times, like, they know what's best. Like, they know that we wouldn't be there if he didn't need us. So
yeah, and I think about, like, my own situation. Like, if one of my boys ever, needed Jez in a situation like this, like, as much as I would like to say, like, who the fuck is stopping me from getting on this plane? At the same time, I'm like, yo, this scene I could cause to get myself on the plane is only taking time away from taking care of my kid. And it's not about me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that's something. And I mean, Ange is under 200 pounds, so she could always go on the plane. I don't have to get my big ass on there either. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
So,
Jez,
that is the other thing too, is
go ahead.
Just like with the weight too. Like, I feel like and a lot of times as kids, we do try to go fixed wing just to accommodate for a family, but, like, that's normally the biggest thing with rotor. Like, I'm really sorry. Like, we literally cannot fit you on there.
It's all right, Jess. Just call me fat. It's no big deal.
So now we're in a situation where the parents can come on, both mom and dad, or just mom, or vice versa. They're on the plane. You guys are in the air, and now they start to feel queasy or, just
Ooh,
they faint. Have you ever come across a situation like that where it's like, now, wow, damn, now I got 2 people I got to take care of or 2 people we got to focus on because dad said he could come on and now he's knocked out because he's air sick or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. No, I have never dealt with that, but we are prepared for that too. I mean, as far as like meds or doing whatever we have to. We think through it. We're aware that we can sometimes end up with 2 patients, but I've never personally been in that situation because if we're going rotor, we can only take 1 parent, and a lot of times, even in the fixed wing, we'll only take 1 parent. I don't think I've ever taken 2 right along because a lot of times somebody else has to drive, so somebody's gotta
true.
Get the car up there to get them home.
Worst case scenario, you just give them a Zofran to pop and give them a bomb emesis bag. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
Or you could just tell them to stop being a bitch. That works too sometimes,
Touche.
Oh my God.
Haven't you ever flown before?
Yo, I don't know. I'm raw sometimes with family, man. I've had situations where like I'm starting an IV and someone's husband's watching and he's getting queasy. I'm like, why are you looking, bro?
Yeah.
Turn around. Like, it's really not a hard situation.
You're putting this on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't actually call them a bitch. I find a politically correct way to say, man, the fuck up, nigga.
Yeah. Big time.
But that's what I want to say.
Yeah. Now, you did mention something that was very interesting, Jez. You mentioned intubation, right? So when it comes down to intubating somebody on a plane like that,
oh yeah,
the level of how high or I guess the height, you guys would have to descend down a little bit, would you not? Or
as far as altitude goes, so in the fixed wing, no, because that's pressurized, right? But in the rotor, I have never. That is not like if we're having to intubate, I don't care where we're at in the sky. Sure. It doesn't really affect too much unless the only thing like that, I mean, not only thing, but one of the main things that would cause us issues would be like if there was a pneumo or something. Mm-hmm. But even that, after you're intubated, you can sort that all out once the procedure is done. So I wouldn't tell my pilot like, hey, can you descend 1,000 feet so we can get this tube in? Altitude wouldn't really be a factor for that if you're having to do that in flight.
Okay, interesting. I was curious about that.
Yeah, that is interesting.
In terms of weather, what is probably the most challenging or difficult mission that you guys had to deal with where weather was a huge factor?
So where we are at, winds are the biggest thing for the helicopter. Winds and visibility. So depending on the clouds and how windy it is, like whenever we're flying, like we make a lot of trips to drop off in Vegas, and whenever you get over that, it's called Railroad Pass, but it's like there's a mountainous area there. The winds, it gets pretty turbulent, and crosswinds and all that sort of thing is just, it's not good for the rotor. And so I don't know how much you know about winds, but a lot of times if winds are up at like 38, 40 knots, a lot of times we won't fly in that. Like rain isn't terrible, but when there's rain, there's clouds, and visibility is a big thing because we are VFR. So while we have the instruments to be IFR, meaning like using only the instruments to see where we are still visual. So we have to be able to see. Right. And whenever you're in the clouds, you can't see.
Yeah.
It's not a good situation. It's actually one of our emergencies. So like we don't fly in clouds, we don't fly in wind, lightning. And I will say like depending on, like, sometimes we'll get to Vegas just fine and the weather just like comes in and then we'll be stuck in Vegas.
Right.
Like we can't fly back. So we'll have to like sit there until the wind or the weather either like goes away, or sometimes we'll be there all day, all night.
Viva Las Vegas, huh?
Enjoy that strip. Enjoy
that strip, because gambling.
Pull that slot machine time once or twice, you know. So let me ask you,
always say that.
Has there ever been a situation?
That's what we always say.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, that's what we always say. We have no problems getting stuck while we're in
absolutely.
Vegas. See how lucky we get.
Hey, there's much worse places to be stuck than Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Has there ever been a scenario where, like, unfortunately, you just didn't know a wind was going to start before a flight? Do you have to do, like, an emergency landing since it's an emergency?
We have done emergency landings. A lot of times it's because, like, we do know there's weather, right?
Of course.
But it doesn't seem like it's not what it's projected to be, or it does. It comes out of nowhere. Cells will come out of nowhere. So we will do emergency landings, and I say that with like quotations, because we know, like, we take a lot of our routes that we do take so many times that we know exactly like where we can deviate. Like there are little airports in between where my base is in Vegas. And that's another part of the flight plan too. So before we even go out on the flight, we already have, like, for every single flight, our pilot will say, if something goes wrong, we'll deviate here, or we could deviate here, or we could deviate here. It's all very, like, planned out in advance.
Yeah, there's like contingencies in place.
If something does go wrong, we already know, like, what we can plan on doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's, like, kind of the same with, like, scene calls, too. So let's say me and my partner, we pick up a scene call, and we think we're going to make it to a level 1 trauma center that's 50 miles away. And let's say while we're en route, like, I don't know, 10 minutes into our flight, let's say the patient codes, we try to deviate too right away. So those are things that we have to keep in our head, like what's closest. So even if there's like a community hospital ER that's closer, depending on the situation, what's going on, we may just like deviate and land there, because doing compressions in a helicopter for an hour is not easy, and it's hard to say like how effective it actually is. So we'd rather just land and get them into a ER until we can like get roll stabilization and then get them out of there.
I got you.
So like deviating the flight plan is not that uncommon, depending on patient condition or weather.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about that, because there's only a medic, a nurse, and then a pilot, right? Just y'all three on the plane, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask how long, what was the longest time frame when you guys were doing compressions, but also to add on to that, have you guys ever thought about having a Lucas on board, or do you know what a Lucas is?
Of course I know what a Lucas is.
Just making sure.
Don't disrespect me like that. Come on.
Some people no, honestly, I thought it was more so of an American thing, because the first time I heard of a Lucas was when I went to Alaska.
Okay.
So
you think all Canadian nurses are stupid is what you're saying?
No.
Oh, okay.
All I'm saying is...
So not just me. All right.
Because at the level 1 trauma facility that I was in Michigan, Detroit to be exact, we never had a Lucas, at least not to my acknowledgement, unless it was only in the ER. Then when I went to Alaska, and if you remember the last episode we had, upscale, everything state of the art. So that was my first time seeing a Lucas in action.
I see.
So is it possible to have a Lucas on board?
That's a good question, actually.
So on fixed wings, a lot of times they will have Lucases. I know other companies and aircraft have a Lucas. We do not. Lucas, I don't know how heavy that they are exactly. I do know they're very heavy.
I wouldn't say they're terribly heavy. It's like a heavy backpack, but I wouldn't classify as a heavy backpack too heavy, but it depends, I guess, how much you can carry.
And then for the listeners, a Lucas is pretty much just a device that essentially does compressions for you.
But so a couple things with that though. So are you guys still here?
Yeah, we're there. Go ahead.
Nice. Oh, okay. So they are heavy, so they add weight to the aircraft.
True.
To the
Also,
aircraft, yeah.
trying to put a Lucas on a patient who is already strapped in and secured to a sled
That's true.
in a helicopter. I honestly, I've never tried it, but I can't imagine it's that easy.
I can see the safety risks as you're talking about it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, at that point, if you're having to do CPR, I mean, we're probably not going to spend time trying to get, I mean, it would be helpful. But a lot of times doing CPR in the rotor, you're just praying for Ross or praying you're close.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Also, when I worked in Alaska, it's coming back to me now. We did have to communicate and collaborate a lot with a lot of the flight nurses or with the companies.
Oh, yeah.
So in Alaska, we had
rural.
Yeah, very rural. So like there was at least 3 companies that we would select. Obviously, there was one that was primary. If the primary flight company couldn't reach us due to the fact that the weather, the visibility, like she was talking about, or if they were just on another mission, we would have to then go down to the second option, the secondary team or secondary company. If they were, if they didn't feel comfortable, then we'd have to go to the third. And honestly, if all 3 of them declined, then whoever's in a tough situation, they're pretty much cooked.
Call Jesus. Start praying.
Basically.
Put your hands together, close your eyes.
Which is crazy because some of these rural areas in Alaska, they're so far away and they're not really developed. They don't have hospitals or facilities out there. They have like maybe mini clinics and they basically have techs that are starting IVs and giving medications through the order of an emergency doctor at at a primary location.
Yeah.
So it's really a
Where
gamble.
were you out there?
So I was in a place called Barrow, Alaska. It's at the very top of the world, essentially, is what they call it.
By Santa Claus, somewhere around the North Pole.
I was close. I was close to Putin, actually. Yeah, we're closer to Russia than we are to any other state. No joke.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. So looking back at it and thinking back about it, that's tough. I mean, being a flight nurse in a climate like that, oh my gosh, where it can be like negatives and you're experiencing blizzards, snow. Because there were some days where it was just pitch white. Like I would look out my window, it's just snow. I don't see anything else, and it hurts your eyes because it's just
so
white,
bright. Yeah,
so bright.
Absolutely.
So I can imagine how visibility plays a huge part in flying.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, just wanted to mention that.
That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine flying out there.
It's tough looking back at it now. Because I worked in the ER out there, and yeah, we would have a lot of situations where, because we weren't a level 1, we were like a level 3 or 4, and if we had a serious situation, we would have to ship them over to Anchorage or fly them out to Anchorage. So that means a plane would have to come from Anchorage to where I was at, which is maybe 2.5, 3 hour flight.
Wow.
Pick them up, then go back. That's another.
Crazy.
And then you got to think about in between time.
That's a long flight.
That is a long flight.
Oh my gosh.
So you got to think about the in between time.
I was just complaining about I had to go from Vegas. We had to fly to Reno to pick up a patient in Reno and take them out to, where did we go? San Francisco or Sacramento or something. And then back. That was like a 10-hour day. So I can't imagine those flight nurses out there, all their flights got to be at least like 10 hours round trip.
Oh, for sure.
Definitely.
That's wild.
Well, I feel like so actually I do have a question, and this is one that we ask a lot of people, but I feel like it's almost a little special asking you because you do something that a lot of people want to do, and it's a pretty intense job. But can you think of like one of the craziest situations you've ever been kind of put into on a shift that has stayed with you until now?
I think every shift is so different.
Absolutely.
And I think whenever you have like this type of question, you think about like the calls that you've had, the calls that like I don't know. I feel like the ones that always stick with us are ones that, how can I say this? The tougher calls,
Yeah.
I will say. The ones that not only like test you and your knowledge, but also help you see that sometimes like there's not a lot that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
You can only do what you can do.
Right.
And while in this job, you see, like, I'd say two of my probably toughest calls. One was a scene call, and one came out of the ICU. And the scene call, it was a car accident on the side of the road. So the logistics of that whole thing. So, I mean, landing out at a scene call is kind of like a big deal because like safety, all that sort of thing. And then whenever you get there, depending on the patient condition, you know, you have your first responders there. So you have your EMTs and medics on the ground in the ambulance that are so excited to see you.
Sure.
You know, you get there and you're like, all right, what do we got? And then you kind of take this train wreck and take it from their ambulance and you put it into your helicopter. Mm-hmm. And that was actually a call where my partner and I mean, it was a lot of ACLS, a lot of coding, did a crike for that patient. That was like kind of a big deal with that one.
Like you guys
and
had
then
to do
sometimes
the
we're, yeah.
Wow.
And so getting that patient to the hospital, even though like, and it's one of those situations, like we get a lot of follow-up and stuff too, but that one was definitely like testing us on knowledge, you know, our surgical skills that we train on, those sorts of things. So like, it's always called whenever like those big things happen. And then my other one that I think sticks with me a lot came out of the ICU, which was like a lot of work. I don't think a lot of people think about whenever you're going into ICU and you have a patient on, you know, 12 drips. Mm-hmm. Whenever we show up, the flight crew, we only carry, you know, 6 pumps.
Oh, man.
So we have to decide how we're going to make all this work with 6 pumps. What can we take? What can we leave? How can we, you know, so a lot of like strategizing.
What can be a secondary
deciding,
line?
You know,
like fucking wide tubing, all this stuff.
Yeah, is propofol compatible with this, or
holy
you know,
crap.
Yeah, exactly. And then not only that, but then they're intubated, and then they have chest tubes, and then they have a wound vac, and then they have, you know, all the things. So, and I hate to say it, like, while one call was like, we got the patient there, knowing that, I mean, they're both very like, how do I say? I don't want to say life changing, but they really make you change your way of thinking and your perspective on, you know, what you're capable of, and like just being so grateful for like your partners, and like just being grateful that like your partner trains just as hard as you do, or like that sort of thing. So a lot of times like you get that question like, oh, what's the craziest thing you've seen? It's like I hate to like take my mind to like the craziest thing that I've seen, but it's more of just like opening your mind to like the realization of like how real this is, not only for you, but your partner, and then your pilot too. Like some of these calls are poor pilots that's like, you know, they didn't sign up to see half the stuff that we see, but, you know, it's just like, it's a really cool, like, I don't know, kind of growing through all of this. And, I know that really didn't answer your question, but I really hate to focus on like,
I mean,
you know, tragic things.
I mean, I understand why you feel that way, but I actually love your answer because it's not the typical answer we get, but not only is it not that, it focuses on such a positive aspect of your job. And one I think that could be admirable by anybody. Like if you're not willing to put that spin on a lot of the things we go through and willing to look at the silver lining and the gratefulness of a lot of the things we have to experience, then, I mean, why do it? So, no, I think that's an awesome answer to my question, truthfully.
well, thank you. I'm like, as soon as I started smiling, I was like, this is not at all what he asked me.
No, honestly. And truthfully, again, it is definitely a question we ask a lot of people. And I think from episode to episode, we get such vastly different answers, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the time you do, of course, get the generic, like, this is such a crazy story and one that stuck with me and in a lot of ways traumatic. But then you get very insightful answers that are so different. And we appreciate both answers just the same, honestly.
Definitely. Yeah. So another question that I wanted to ask. So we had talked about it off air where we, talked about Canada and Alaska. Have you ever thought about, making your way and doing travel flight outside of the country potentially?
I definitely, I would. I think that medicine outside of the U.S. is super interesting, just how like different things are done. And actually, I feel like the more that I learn about like flight out in like the UK and Australia, I feel like seems to be, from what I read, like a little bit more advanced than what we have here. And so I'd be definitely open to it. Even right now too, like I'm afloat and I can, cause my company, like I said, is all over the United States. So I can definitely, like, if I were to ask about like availability and having my license in so many different places, I think I would be able to, fill in like some, float around a little, because we have a corporate float position in my company as well.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
That means you actually float to all the bases that that you would be needed at.
Yeah.
Which is an opportunity. But there's something about like rural medicine that I love. And actually a lot of our bases are rural, but like where we serve right now is closer to like some reservations and stuff, and so a lot of that really hits home for me because I grew up on the reservation up in North Dakota, and so It's like still getting to serve a little bit while not like being there on the reservation, but so little things like that are important to me that I still get to do here. But I'd definitely be open to, depending, like I don't know what that looks like, because I was talking a little bit earlier about just like what it's like getting all your credentials and stuff outside of the country.
Right.
But I can imagine how different it is.
I think
it'd be a sweet opportunity.
I think it's different, but I think you'd also be surprised by one, how easy it is to get credentials over there, right? Because you have to think about yourself. Like when it comes to being a nurse, you are very credentialed, so you'd be an asset in any country, right?
They would hire you instantly, actually.
Yeah. So, and even with the experience you have with a lot of these flight places, I think you would just be surprised by how easy it is to get in. But then I think the only thing I think would be even just a little bit of a shock, I guess, if I could be, would be just learning the different healthcare systems around the world, right? Because in the States, everything is very privatized, and the politics that you get with having everything privatized, it can be a shock. Whereas in the places you've talked about, like the UK and Australia, they have both private and public healthcare. So I think seeing the public side of things, especially when you start talking about, like, there's reservations everywhere around the world, right? When you deal with Indigenous people anywhere, you have these reservations. You get to see what that looks like in different countries, and often they are served by the public system. And I think that would maybe be the biggest eye opener in, like, as a contrast to the U.S.
Yeah.
Because it does look look very different around the world when you think of it that way.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. That'd be, like I said, I can't even imagine, because like this is all I've ever known.
Yeah.
I've never worked outside of the country, but I'm sure it'd be just as awesome as it is here.
Well, sure.
in my job.
Definitely. I honestly think you would like it, honestly.
I think you'd love it too.
One of my final questions, the pandemic. So I think that's when both yourself and I had met. We had met in Louisiana. How was that experience for you? We like to call it the bandemic, as you know. The bandemic. The amount of money that was circulating.
Yes.
So for you, how long were you in Louisiana for? Because I think there was a point in time where I think you had went home and then decided to do something else.
Yeah. So they offered me to stay, and I wasn't there that long, 6 weeks or 8 weeks. I think I was there for, and I can't remember if I had to go home. I don't remember what was going on. But I ended up going home, and then I think that was SNAP nurse. I'm trying to keep it all, I feel like everything I did during the pandemic all just kind of gloomed together.
Yeah.
So another thing that I kind of did, I hate to say the side, but I worked on a critical care response team. So it would be a couple ICU nurses, a respiratory therapist, a critical care doc, and we went out so this is whenever I went up to Montana. Right after this, I went up to Montana, and we looked at, so this is also IHS, so the Indian healthcare facilities, and we go and kind of take a look through all of their policies, procedures, doing quick trainings on intubated patients, sedated patients, because during COVID, these small IHS facilities that aren't used to keeping critically sick patients didn't really know what to do with them because everything was so full everywhere that they couldn't transport them out.
True.
So we went into these facilities and did a quick down and dirty, this is what you do for, proning and intubated patients, BiPAP patients, just kind of all the things that they wouldn't normally see, doing a quick training on that. And then we also went through and did a lot of other things as far as their policies and procedures, updating a lot of their IV pumps and just kind of a bunch of different things in a 2-week span. So I did a couple of those. I did one in Oklahoma, I did one up in Montana. And so I left there, went and I did one of those. And then I don't even remember where I worked after that because honestly, during COVID, while it was crazy as it was, I used that time and I went to I worked in Guam and I worked in Hawaii. I was take me to the beach. I will go work. Yeah. I was I'm trying to go, I'll go work all day, but I want to be at the beach or somewhere nice if I'm going to be working, 6 days a week. So I feel that was normal at that time. We were all signing up for 60-hour week contracts because we're crazy and most of us money. So
you work 240 hours in a row and you're talking about 60-hour week contracts?
Well, let me tell you, the 60 hours, and I mean not so much there, oh my gosh, Louisiana, I probably would have stayed, but I feel I got the easiest job in that whole city. Because I was originally supposed to be hired for the ICU, and they're ICU is fully staffed. I'm well, I'm here. What are you going to do with me? You're not putting me, they're well, we could send you to the stroke unit. And I was I don't want to go to the stroke unit. And then I went up to the stroke unit, and I saw the two guys that were working on the stroke unit, shooting rubber bands into a urinal. I'm sure, I can hang out here.
Yeah. So me and Jez were in the same facility. I was actually in the ICU, and honestly, Jez, it was pretty smooth sailings there. Don't get me wrong. There were some nights where it was kind of, busy, but for the most part, yeah, you are right. I guess where you were was pretty smooth. It was pretty smooth. I wanted to even be in.
I was in. Like, I think I gained like 12 pounds working there because I wasn't doing anything.
That is
Like,
hilarious.
I think we all gained pounds, and I think it didn't help that the cafeteria, we could all break into it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's the
I was getting slushies every night, Skittles. Funny. Oh my God, every chips, you name it. But yeah.
That is so funny.
I think one of the nurses' names was
yeah.
Lance. What was his name? Lance?
Oh, damn, you're diming him out.
Yeah, he was up.
There's a lot of Lance. There's a lot of Lance.
Rubber bands in the urinal.
There's a lot of Lances in the U.S.
No, this was the one though.
Yeah. I'm sure he's the first name that popped up when you mentioned shooting rubber bands. He's that type of guy. He's cool. I want to try and get him on the podcast. Actually, I'm gonna see if I can. I'll hit up Cass and see if I can get him.
Oh, please do.
Yeah. But
he was so funny. He was like, welcome to the unit where the nurses go before they retire. Like, all right, I'm here for it.
Oh, that's funny.
There was another nurse on that floor that had a Oculus.
Okay,
I think
you're lying.
I swear.
While you're working?
Yeah, yes, she had. Sometimes I would go there and use it too.
Oh, that's funny.
She had this fishing game on her Oculus. It's kind of like that. The 3D goggles kind of. I guess it links with the PlayStation, and you can play games through it. Like
I think it's Xbox, right? There's a PlayStation.
I think
Wait, this was upstairs.
Yeah.
Or
this was after
up
you.
in the because like.
This is after you left.
Oh, okay.
I believe it was after you left. There was a female nurse. She would bring her Oculus, to the unit a lot, and yeah, whenever there was downtime, which was pretty much a lot, she would just play that on her free time. So I would go there a few times and just go on it and just play, and it was interesting. It was cool.
The pandemic.
I'm telling you, stories on stories.
That's funny. Okay, I got one more question for my friend here. If you could give your younger self any advice, any recommendations, anything, if you could tell your younger self anything, what would it be?
Honestly, it would be just keep doing what you're doing. I feel like I said this so many times talking to you guys that I just got lucky, but I think I just really like ended up where I was supposed to be. I like went through the right doors. I don't know. I will say I did go like every open door. Like I said, like I went and I did like my EMT. I didn't really have to do that. I just kind of wanted to do that, or like talk to the people that you meet, like just staying in touch with your connections, and just keep going. Cause I remember there were days where I'm just like, I don't know if any of this is worth it. Nursing, I don't know. And like, I feel all of us get that way with nursing though, right? Like one day we love it. The next day we're like, what the hell are we doing? But I mean, just kind of taking advantage of every opportunity. Cause I can't even imagine like if I hadn't said yes to half the things that I did just out of a whim, not even knowing like what I was getting myself into, like I wouldn't be here. And I'm so happy like where I'm at right now. So I don't have much else than that. Cause like I said, I was planning on having my like doctorate degree and everything by the time I was 30 and have it all be a closed book and whatever. And I'm still just like, I don't even know if that's anything that I want to do anymore.
Hey, that's okay.
I don't know, just walk through all the open doors, and if you get a no, there's a reason. It's okay. It's not the end of the day.
Yeah, I think you're a huge testament to that, honestly. In terms of having having all your cups filled, you know, your hands are in so many things, or was in so many things that, like you said, it just landed on your lap. So imagine not having those certs or doing or tapping into different avenues within healthcare. You're right. The opportunity just landed on your lap, and I think that's amazing. Yeah, super proud of you, and I'm thankful that we still keep in contact. But yeah, honestly, true testament to that.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I'm super excited to hear about when you graduate and what you got going on after that. I'll be excited to hear all about it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Yeah, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming. I feel like I've learned so much.
100%. And I would love to have you as a guest again in the near future as well, too.
I feel like I had a lot of questions still to ask, but
Yeah, we'll save it for next time.
Yeah.
But we're gonna wrap up.
Yeah, if you guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say thanks for having me, and if you guys ever want to reach out, have another chat, feel free to hit me up.
Absolutely. Definitely. Alrighty. We'll let you go, though.
Yeah, Jess, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Alrighty. Bye. Alrighty. There you have it. I enjoyed that episode a lot.
I really did, too. Shout out Jazz, man. Thank you.
When life gives you lemons, you got to make lemon pepper wings.
You already know what it is.
You know what I mean? Make sure y'all like, subscribe, comment.
Yes, sir.
YouTube, all that. Let's get the subscribers up. And, yeah, we'll see you on the next episode.
Peace.